have the blue. If you are a public employee, you should have the green. So if you need to come and switch, come and switch. Public safety. And then everybody, regardless of which system you're in, should have the investment options. Do you guys do any matching? Okay.
From the retirement system, she's here to talk about public safety and public employee Tier 1 retirement. So I'll just let her do her thing.
Okay. Do you tell me when you're ready for me to start? Okay. Okay, so if everyone has their right booklets, we're going to talk about two different forms of retirement planning, retirement savings. The green or the blue brochure is in regards to the pension. The investment options is in regards to the savings plans, 401k, 457, IRAs. So we're going to talk about the pension first. But before we get started, I just want to throw out this number, 15,900. Does anyone have a guess as to what this represents for the average American last year? Any guesses? Taxes. Be, I guess, a good income problem to have, maybe. 15,900. That represents the average annual Social Security income for the average American. So some people received less than that, some people received more, but the average Social Security income for 2014 was $15,900. Does anyone here want to live on $15,900 in retirement? Okay, well, I can guarantee, because you're sitting in this room, that you have some retirement plans that are going to make it so that you don't have to just rely on Social Security in retirement. Before we get started, I'd just like to throw out this chart. I know it's a little small if you're sitting in the back, but what this chart shows is the percentage of your income replaced by Social Security based on your average 35 years of earnings history. So you can see if you are on the lower end of average earnings, Social Security replaces a larger percentage of your income in retirement. If you are on the higher end of average lifetime earnings, Social Security replaces a smaller percentage of your income. So Social Security replaces more of your income if you're on the lower average annual income over your lifetime. If you're on the high end, it replaces less. Still does not replace or come close to replacing most of the income for the average earner. The average earner made about $15,900 with security earnings, so they were right here in this bracket. Average wages was $40,000 over their lifetime. That's an annual number. So Social Security was replacing about a third of their income. Because you work for Box Elder County, because your employer participates in the retirement system, the two plans that we're going to talk about, the pension and the savings plans, can help to supplement what Social Security may provide in retirement. So just keep that in mind when you say, oh, I think, I'm going to live on Social Security, which maybe few years, decades ago, that might have been okay. Now Social Security is running into some issues, and it doesn't provide, because people are having to work longer in order to qualify for benefits. If you apply early, there's reduced benefits. It may not provide the type of income that you want in retirement. So we're going to talk about what your employer is doing to help supplement what Social Security may provide. So we're first going to talk about the public pension. Again, public safety, public employees. Is it come in that does not have either a green or a blue brochure that needs one? Don't be shy. Okay, if you need to come up and grab one, just grab one. So, on the pension side, the green or the blue brochure, the pension provides a lifetime benefit. It works kind of like Social Security in that the pension provides a lifetime retirement income for you. When you go to apply for Social Security, you've paid into Social Security as long as you've had earned income. You can't go to the Social Security Administration and say, give me all of the Social Security that's due to me, and I want it all in one lump sum. That's just not the way that Social Security works. The pension works the same way. When you go to retire, there's no lump of money with your name on it that you could just go and spend all in 1 year. Instead, your benefit's going to be based on a formula comprised of the number of years that you worked, a multiplier, and your average 3-year salary. So based on the formula, you will receive a monthly income check. It will provide income for as long as you are alive in retirement, and if you so elect, can also provide continuing income for a spouse. You do receive an annual statement on your pension. Does anyone remember receiving their annual statement in January or so? It's got a maroon header. Okay, a couple things that you need to look at on that statement are the number of years of service that we have showing for you on that statement and your salary history. Right at the bottom of the statement, there's the calendar year salary history that we have for you. The reason that's important is because we go to figure out what you're going to be receiving in retirement. We look at your years of service and your salary history, and that's all on that annual pension statement. If you are not receiving an annual pension statement, you need to call the number. Oh, some of these brochures don't have it. You can call our office. The number's on the back of this brochure. If for some reason you're not getting a statement, maybe if your address has changed or we don't have updated contact information for you, or if something on that statement does not seem correct. Sometimes we run into problems when people leave public employment and come back and there's a break. We want to make sure that all of the years that you have worked as a public employee and been eligible for the pension are credited to you. Okay, if you open up your brochure, whether it's green or whether it's blue, we're going to talk about your formula. Now, most of the slides that I have up here are for public employee. So if you're public safety, if you're in the blue, your formula is going to be a little bit different, but I will point that out to you in the brochure. Okay, for public employee, we are going to look at your years of service. We're going to times that by 2%. And then we're going to times that by your average high 3 as we look over your salary history, your average high 3 years, and that's going to equal your benefit. If you are public safety, your formula is right here. Your multiplier is 2.5% for the first 20 years and 2% for every year after that. Your multiplier is still, or your average high is still your average high 3. So a little bit different formula, but works the same way as far as years of service times your multiplier times your average high 3. In this example, this person worked 30 years as a public employee. We take 30 times 2%, that's 60%. We looked at their 30 years of salary history. We took their high 3. We averaged it. That came out to be $40,000. And so 60% of $40,000 is a benefit of $24,000 a year, or if you divide that by 12, it's $2,000 a month. And your pension is paid monthly. You'll get a direct deposit into your checking or your savings account at the end of each month. If you are in public safety, there's an example here where someone had 25 years. Their first 20 were multiplied at 2.5% for 50%. The next 5 were multiplied at 2 for an additional 10. So their 60% times the average high 3 was a benefit of $24,000 a year or $2,000 a month. Any questions on how the formula works? There is no cap on the years of service, by the way. We retired a school teacher who worked for 54 years as a public employee. What was her benefit check? 108%. She got a raise when she retired, and she deserved every penny of that because she taught school, bless her heart, for 54 years. So there is no cap. You do not have to retire at 20 years as a public safety employee or 30 years as a public employee. You can continue to work, and you would get 2% for each additional year that you continue to work past the number that it takes to qualify for the benefit. We do not cap you. Okay, the nice thing about this pension formula, again, if you'll look in your booklets, right up to the side, if you look at cost of living adjustment or COLA. Depending on which system you're in for public safety, it could be 2.5% or 4%. Depends on your agency. For a public employee, it's a COLA of up to 4%. Now the COLA has a cap. That doesn't mean that you're guaranteed the 2.5 or that you're guaranteed the 4 every year. That's the cap each year. It is based on the Consumer Price Index. That's a federally set index. So the nice thing about your pension in retirement, it is your pay raise in retirement, it is not set by the legislature. It is written into the rules that govern the pension. So regardless of state budgets and allocations, you will get a raise in retirement based on the Consumer Price Index. If there is inflation or if that Consumer Price Index is positive, you will get a raise. If we ever have negative inflation and the Consumer Price Index is negative, which we did have in 2009, we do not ever reduce your pension. You just wouldn't get a raise in your pension that year, or you wouldn't get a cost of living increase that year. Again, works very similar to the way that Social Security works. If your pension check starts out at $1,000 and the Consumer Price Index is 2.5% for that year, starting in month 13 of your pension, if you were receiving $1,000, Consumer Price Index was 2.5%, you would then receive $1,025 for the next year. And then again, we'd look back at the CPI starting in year 3, see what it was, and we'd apply that to your check. The cost of living increase is added to the pension check on your anniversary month. So if you retire in June, June is when you would get your cost of living adjustment. You don't have to wait till January of the following year. If inflation or if that Consumer Price Index is higher than your cap, whether you're capped at the 2.5 or at the 4, we will bank the difference or the extra for you, and we can draw on that bank or that reserve whenever the cost of living adjustment or the CPI is below your cap. So let's take, for example, public employee, you have a cap or cost of living adjustment of 4%. Let's say the CPI is 3. So if your benefit, let's just say for simple math, is $1,000, you'd get your full 3% or your full $30 added to your check for the next 12 months. Let's say the next year the CPI is 6. So you would get the max that you could get, which would be 4%, so that would be $40 added to your $1,000 check, in addition to all of the other increases that you've previously received. We would bank that extra 2%, and if the next year the cost of living adjustment or the COLA is 1, we would be able to draw that extra 2% that's been in reserve for you and give you 3. So eventually we will draw on that reserve until it's emptied. In the late 70s, early 80s, anybody remember what inflation was running at if you had a mortgage or went to borrow money? Double digits. We did have some years where it, because of the percent, there was a significant reserve for retired employees. It took about 10 years to draw out that bank, but they did get that cost of living was to them, paid out eventually in years that the cap wasn't met until that bank was reserved or bank was withdrawn. Right now, inflation's been really low. In the last 10 years, we haven't hit the 4% COLA. So really low inflation, good for spending as far as being able to buy about the same amount of goods each year. If inflation is low, not great for earning interest, really good for borrowing if interest rates and inflation are low. Yes?
On your example for at least for the public safety, it says that if you have service credit before 1989, you may get an additional 3%.
Yes, and that's for public employees and public safety. So the way that works is anyone here in the public system before 1989? Okay, so the way that works is, and this was something worked out with the legislature on, it had to do with your pension being not subject to state income tax and then being subject to state income tax. So they worked out a little deal where if you had service credit before 1989, we calculate your benefit based on your formula, whether it's public safety or public employee. Once we calculate your benefit, we get the actual dollar amount, and then we add 3% to that. So if your benefit in this example is $2,000 a month, we would add 3% to that. Your starting first year pension would be $2,060. So we don't add 3% here. We don't say, oh, you have 20 years times 2.5%, that's 50%. Let's give you 53. It doesn't work that way. Or 20 years times 2%, 40%, let's give you 43. We actually get the dollar amount and then add 3% to that. Just to start your pension, and then after that you just get the cost of living adjustment.
3% per year of service you have before that. It's
No.
3 years.
Yeah, it's just a little, what happened was it had to do with federal pensions being subject to taxes and state pensions being subject to taxes, and it was just a deal worked out with the legislature to kind of make state employees whole, is the way they figured it. But it's just a one-time bump up of an additional 3% after we've calculated your benefit. Yeah. Any questions on the cost of living adjustment? If you think about how long you may be retired, people are living a lot longer these days due to advances in medicine, medical devices. You may be retired for close to or even longer than you are working to receive your pension. If you retire at 60 and live to age 85 or 90, if your pension didn't have a cost of living adjustment, if you think of, well, does anyone know what a postage stamp is today? I think it's 49, unless they've raised it. Does anyone know what a postage stamp was 25 years ago, 1990? 24. So over 25 years, the cost of that postage stamp has doubled. The cost of a new Honda Accord, 1990, was about $9,500. If you wanted to buy a Honda Accord now, depending on your options, you may be paying about $20,000. So over your retirement, what $1,000 a month buys at the beginning of your retirement may take $1,700 to buy at the end of your retirement. It's nice to have that cost of living adjustment in there to try to keep up with the cost of the movie tickets that are going to increase, and the loaf of bread, and the pair of shoes, and the medicines. So that is a nice benefit to having a cost of living adjustment. It does try to keep up with the way that things increase over time. And sometimes we don't think about that unless we really think back. Oh, what did my first house cost? Or what did my first car cost, right out of college? You probably would pay about double, 15, 20, 25 years later. So, okay. When do you qualify for benefits? A little bit different depending on public safety and public employee. So again, if you open up your brochure right at the bottom of the inside page, when do you qualify? This slide is for public employee. The key with public employee, how many are public employee? Okay, so a little less than half. Public employee. The key with public employee is age 65 or 30 years. Public safety, the main key is 2 years of service to qualify, regardless of your age. With public employee, if you're age 65 with at least 4 years, or if you have at least 30 years at any age, you qualify with no early age reduction. For public employees, you can qualify to receive that pension with less than 30 years or under age 65. However, you may have an early age reduction. If you're age 62 and have at least 10 years, age 60 and have at least 20, 25 years at any age, you can qualify for the benefit, but your early age reduction would be applied, and that is right here, right next to the eligibility requirements. Basically, it's going to be a reduction of between 3 and 7%, depending on how many years you have or how old you are under the age of 65. For public safety, your key right here is basically age 65 with at least 2 years, 60 with at least 10, or any age with 20 years. So public employee, age 65, 30 years. Public safety, age 65, 20 years. Now, let's say you start working and you're 30 years old and you put 5 years in and you decide to leave public employment and you go start your own business, or you go work for your brother-in-law building houses, do you qualify for a pension benefit? You do, but you need to come back at age 65 because you only have your 5 years. You've got at least your 4. So you don't qualify if you're age 30 with 5 years until you reach 65. So you will have a small benefit due to you based on being vested, but you would need to come back at 65. So we don't handcuff you to the public employee or the public safety system. You can definitely leave at any time. And I didn't mean handcuff, and wasn't trying to be funny. But if you don't meet the eligibility requirements, if you have at least 4 years, you're vested in the pension, you can come back at 65. Any questions? If you move from public safety to public employee system, or vice versa, you need to meet the qualifications for the system that you're in when you retire, whether it's the 20 years public safety or the 30 years public employee. However, the public safety years are a little bit more valuable formula-wise than the public employee. So if you have some public safety years, some public employee years, it's not a one-for-one ratio as far as how those would work in your formula. Anybody got time in both systems? Okay. Oh, one person. Okay. If you have questions on that, let me know. You can move systems and you can move agencies. The nice thing about the public system, and I am not encouraging you to look for employment in another agency. If you work for Box Elder County for 10 years, and then you go work for Cache County for 10, and then you work for Rich County for 5, you've got 25 years with 3 different agencies that all add up together for your retirement benefit. So you don't have to stay with the same employer, but you would have to stay in an employer that participates in the Utah retirement system. That is all of the counties, all of the state employment positions, cities, municipalities, so Brigham City, Murray City, Salt Lake City, all of the school districts, special service districts, if you work for the Water Conservancy District or the Mosquito Abatement District, all of those districts all participate in the Utah retirement system. And if you move among agencies, those years of service credit still continue to accrue. So just keep that in mind as well. If you decide that you don't like your coworkers, you like the coworkers in I don't know, what's a close, in West Haven better, you can go work in West Haven and still accrue years of service. Any questions on the qualifications? Okay, early age reduction, we went over that a little bit on the public employee side. If, as a public employee, you may, and this doesn't apply to public safety, but as a public employee, you can purchase future service credit towards your pension in order to avoid the early age reduction. If you have at least 25 years or are age 65, you may purchase up to 5 years. As far as the cost of that, it's going to depend on every employee's cost would be different. It depends on your salary, depends on the number of years you're purchasing, it depends on when you're purchasing them. If you have eligible service credit outside of the Utah retirement system, you can also purchase that into the Utah retirement system. If you have military service, if you have federal service or public service from another state. If you have any questions on that, you can ask me afterwards. We do have some calculators on our website if that's something that you wanted to look into. Okay, payout options. A little bit different for public employee and public safety. Public employee have a few more options than public safety, and this is on the next page inside your cover for public employee and public safety. We are right here. Now, you don't make this decision until you retire. If you are single at retirement, on the public employee side, the only option available to you is option 1, or option 2 if you ever were part of a contributory agency. So the spousal options are not available to you if you are single at retirement. These are the public employee options. Options 3 and 4 allow you to leave a continuing benefit to a spouse. Option 3 is 100% of your benefit can continue to a surviving spouse. Option 4 is a 50% benefit. So in this example, your maximum benefit is $2,000 a month. Even if you are married at retirement, and on the day you go to retire, you don't like your spouse and you want to choose option 1, you can choose option 1. You probably would have a very angry spouse, but you could choose option 1. We do have married couples each choosing option 1 for reasons that they anticipate both having a pretty long life expectancy and both having about the same number of years as far as their life expectancy. It allows you to both get your maximum benefit. Or if your spouse has other sources of income where your pension wouldn't be needed to help supplement their needs in retirement. If they, have an inheritance or rental income or, other sources of income where you would like to receive your maximum benefit and don't anticipate a spouse needing your pension in retirement, you can choose option 1 as a married couple. The difference for public employees between option 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. 5 is the same as 3 in that it's a 100% benefit to the spouse, and 6 is the same as 4 in that it's a 50% benefit to spouse. However, if you choose 5 or 6 over 3 or 4, and your spouse passes away first, so now there's no spouse to receive a continuing benefit, you, as the member, for the rest of your retirement, would revert back up to option 1 for the remainder of your retirement. And that's right here in the very bottom of options 5 and 6. For public safety, you don't have a 50% or 100% benefit. Your benefits are 65 and 75. So when we go to calculate your benefit, this is the maximum benefit. Whether it's the 30 years at 2% or however, public employee times 2%, public at safety, the first 20 at 2.5%, years after that at 2, that is your maximum benefit. Most of our members do not choose the maximum benefit. They choose an option that reduces that maximum benefit in order to be able to receive, in order to allow their spouse to receive that continuing check at retirement. For public safety, if you choose the 65% benefit, your benefit is not reduced. Your maximum has not been reduced, but when you pass away, your spouse receives 65% of your pension check. If you choose the 75% benefit, your maximum benefit is reduced so that your spouse can get that extra 10%. Again, you don't make these options until you retire, and it does only apply to the spouse that you are married to at retirement. So let's say you retire, you choose spousal option 3 as a public employee, or spousal, I think these are called 8 and 9 in our system, the 65% benefit as a public safety. You pass away, your spouse passes away. You, the member, are still alive. You marry and you have new spouse number 2. You pass away. Spouse number 2 does not receive a continuing benefit. So the benefit only applies to the member. When both of you are out of the picture, no new subsequent spouses receive any benefit. Otherwise, that benefit could perpetuate forever, especially if you marry younger spouses and then spouses. So benefits only apply to the member and the retirement. Any questions on that?
What if you have multiple spouses?
We are in Utah. So we have to follow, if we have a qualified domestic relations order on file, depending on what the courts have stated, what has been worked out with your divorce, we follow those quadros. So we follow those. If you're divorced and your spouse gets to receive half of your pension, then we have to send them half the pension. Whatever the divorce courts have stated has to happen, then we follow that. A what?
What share?
Quadro is what we refer to. Yeah, it could be. I'm not familiar with that term, but unless that's a joke, I don't know. Oh, okay. Yeah, so the key is make sure you're married to the right person at retirement, I guess. Maybe too late for some people, I don't know. Okay, regardless of public safety or public employee, regardless of which system you're in, if you look over to the next two columns, you'll see PLSO, or a 12-month PLSO, 24-month PLSO. PLSO stands for partial lump sum option. This is the only time that you can get a lump sum of money out of your pension. As I mentioned, your pension does not have is not a pool of money with your name on it. At retirement, that's the only time that you can sort of skim off the top of your pension, so to speak, and get a lump sum of money, either 12 months worth of payments, so 1 year, or 24 months, 2 years worth of pension payments as a lump sum. You still start your pension in month 1 of retirement, in addition to getting the partial lump sum option if you elect that. If you take one of the partial lump sum options, it does permanently reduce your benefit. And these are the examples shown in the public employee brochure. Yes?
What does the COLA be based off? Is it after the 24-month or at the retirement?
It will be based on your after the lump sum. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what's the penalty? Taking a lump sum?
So it's going to. This is just an example. But it's just going to be based on, just like the payout options are based on your age and if you're married at retirement, your spouse's age, it's based on a joint life expectancy. Same with the reduction on the partial lump sum. So in this example, this person's maximum benefit was $2,000 a month. If they chose option 3 with a partial lump sum of 12 months, their reduction's about $358. This is based on someone, the retiree's age 65, and I'm not 62 or something. But if you go to retire and your spouse is significantly older or significantly younger, or you're significantly older when you retire or younger, you can't always say, oh, it's going to be a difference of $250 a month. That's not always going to be the case. So it's based on your ages at retirement and joint life expectancy. This is just an example. Everybody's partial lump sum numbers and everybody's pension payout numbers it'd be different for every single person in this room, because everybody's going to have probably a little bit different in service credit, because you earn a little bit of service credit every pay period. Everybody's birthday is different, and when they retire, age, spouse's age, all of that goes into the formula for this.
But is what I'm saying is the penalty as far as taking a lump sum, like tax-wise?
Oh, good question. So when you take the partial lump sum, there is no, if for public safety, if you are at least over age 50, there is no early withdrawal penalty. There's no IRS assessed penalty. For public employee, you need to be over age 55. So there's no early age, or there's no IRS 10% early withdrawal penalty assessed if you meet either of those two ages. If you pull the money out and spend it, so the check is sent to your checking or savings account, it will count as income, and it's not penalized, but it's subject to income taxes, federal and state income taxes. So if you took the partial lump sum option of $24,000 and you went and bought a boat, you would get a 1099 for $24,000, and you would just have to add that to all of your other sources of income in that year, and whatever that puts you in tax bracket wise. So it would just count as income. There's no penalty.
So hypothetically, 50 years old, public safety, you take a lump sum, there's no penalty to take that lump sum?
As long as you're 50, but it would be subject to income taxes. If you're below age 50, or 55 for a public employee, you can roll it into an IRA, a 401k, a qualified type of retirement plan, and when you pull the money out, if you are at least those ages, then it would be subject to federal and state income taxes at that time. So if you spend the partial lump sum option all at once, it counts as income in that year. If you roll it into a qualified plan and only pull out $1,000 or $2,000 here and there over several years, you only pay taxes on the amount that you pull out. Your pension, by the way, is subject to taxes as well. So if you get $24,000 a year in pension, it's like you earn $24,000, and you just add that to, if you have a spouse that has income or you have rental income, you just add it to all of your sources of income, you apply your deductions, your exemptions, and then you pay taxes on whatever your taxable income is. Any questions? Yes?
So on the lump sum, it's rolled it into something, 401.
No consequences.
Move out of the state, move out of the tax, right?
If you move to a state that doesn't have a state income tax, like Nevada, there would be no state income taxes. Right.
That's on the pension, I knew that, but I didn't know that on.
On the 401k as well. Yep, it'll be subject to whatever the state rules are. Yeah, so, and it's wherever your permanent residence is, by the way, too. So, yeah. We do have calculators. I know it's a little hard to see, but this is our home page. Right across the top of our home page, there is a little link that says calculator. Has anybody gone online to use the calculators? Okay, I would encourage you to do that, because you can, this brochure, in both of these, this box is just an example. Sometimes we have people come to our office and say, oh, Dawn said that I was going to get $2,000 a month. That's my option one. This is just an example. If you want to know what your graph looks like, public safety or public employee, if you want to know what yours actually looks like, go online to the calculators. You'd put in your birthday, your spouse's birthday, when you would anticipate retiring, what your current salary is, and if you are more than 3 years out, what you think that would grow at, so that we can project a high 3. How many years of service credit you would have at retirement. And then it will calculate your option 1, your option 2, your option 3 through 6, or for public safety, your 65 or 75% options, as well as the PLSO options. Play with those numbers a little bit. You can see, oh, if I worked an extra 5 years, what would my pension look like? Or if I took this supervisor or management position and my salary bumped up, what could that do to my pension? So I would encourage you to, you don't even have to be logged into your account, just click on the calculator link. Make sure that when you click on the link, though, that there's a drop down for which system you're in. Make sure if you're in public safety, you pick public safety. If you're a public employee, you pick public employee. Okay, active member death benefits, a little bit different for public safety versus public employee. Again, they're on the back. For public employee, they're right here. For public safety, they're right here. They're the back page. My slides are for public employee. But these are death benefits if you pass away before you retire. Once you retire, there are no active member death benefits. As a public employee, if you pass away, your beneficiaries receive a single payment of 75% of your highest annual salary. Plus, if you qualify, if you have at least 15 years as a public employee, they could get a portion of your pension as well. If you're in the contributory system, does anybody here in the have contributory? Okay, so that wouldn't apply. If you're public safety, again, depending on if it's line of duty or not line of duty and how many years you have, there are different benefits for dependents and stuff. Any questions on those? We recommend don't choose that as an option. Keep on working and retire, and we never like to see those. We never, obviously like to see those in our office, because we want you to work your career, retire, and enjoy that pension for a long, long time. Okay, so we just talked about the pension side. This is fully funded by your employer. You do not contribute to this out of your paycheck unless you were ever part of the contributory system. But everybody here, I believe, is in the non-contributory. It's a benefit. This monthly lifetime income check, you are not paying for out of your paycheck. That is a sweet benefit. Social Security, you're paying 7.65% out of your paycheck into the Social Security system. You are not paying into the system for this benefit. I know that as public employees, as far as pay scale goes, sometimes we could probably go make more in the private sector, but you would not find very many pensions this generous in the private sector. So each time you complain about going to work, remember that your employer is paying into this pension for you. You get your time in and you receive that benefit check for hopefully a very long and fun retirement. Now, we showed that slide at the beginning. Social Security replaces somewhere maybe around a third of your retirement income. Depending on how many years you have in the system, your pension could replace 50, 60, maybe 70% of your income. Maybe between those two, you will have made whole your pre-retirement income, depending on how many years you have. If not, or even in addition to that, we always recommend supplementing what your employer is doing on your own with contributing to either a 401k, 457, or the IRA options. Regardless of which system you're in, which agency you're with, you have retirement plan options. So we're going to talk about this side right here. One of the differences between the savings plans from the pension is that this is a pool of money with your name on it. You have control how much you spend, when you spend, and based on the investment choices which you control, you may determine how big or how small that pool is. So the pension, monthly income check, your employer provides or pays into that for you. These type of plans, you can make elective deferrals from your paycheck, and they can supplement the pension and Social Security. If you are participating in one of these plans, you get a quarterly statement on that. If you open up first page, 457, 401k, traditional IRA, and Roth. The first three are very similar tax-wise. If you make a contribution to any of the first three, you get a deduction in the year you make the contribution. The money grows tax deferred, meaning if you invested and your investments make some money, you do not pay taxes on that income until you actually start to make withdrawals. So it is one of the benefits that the IRS gives you for saving for retirement in one of the first three plans is that you don't pay taxes on the money until you make the withdrawals in retirement. One of the main differences between the 401k and the 457 is the early withdrawal penalty tax. It is not applicable to the 457. We see a lot of public safety and a lot of public employees using the 457 plan because with a 401k, with a traditional IRA, if you pull money out before age 59 and a half, the IRS will assess a 10% early withdrawal penalty on that money. That does not apply in the 457. And we have a lot of public employees and public safety retiring before age 59 and a half. If you're going to work past age 59 and a half, it probably doesn't matter as much which plan you choose. But if you think you're going to retire in your late 40s, early 50s, sometime before 59 and a half, with the 401k, you have to work into the year you turn 55 in order to avoid the early withdrawal penalty. With the 457, as long as you're separated from service, you're no longer with that employer, you could pull money out at 45. Still subject to federal and state income taxes, but not an early withdrawal penalty. So that's one reason why people use the 457 over the 401k. You can contribute the same amount and it works the same tax-wise. A few differences on hardship type of withdrawals between the two. But that's the early withdrawal penalty being not there in the 457 is one of the main benefits of the 457. For the Roth IRA, the last one listed, it is the opposite of the other three as far as the way the tax benefits work. Roth contributions, anyone heard of a Roth? Anyone have a Roth? Okay, if you contribute to a Roth, it is made with after-tax money. So you do not get a tax deduction in the year you make the contribution. If you make $30,000 and you want to put 10% or $3,000 into a retirement plan and you choose the Roth, your taxable income or your W-2 is going to say $30,000. If you put it in the other three, it would say $27,000. You get to reduce your income based on your contribution in the first three, but not in the Roth. The main difference though, let's say you put $3,000 in and over 10 years it grew to $20,000. You didn't add anything to it, but you made some good investment choices. If you pulled $20,000 out of the first three, it would count as income, just like your pension, just like your Social Security, just like, pulling out of your PLSO from the 401k, pay taxes on it. If that $3,000 was in the Roth and it grew to $20,000, you pulled $20,000 out, you don't have to report anything to the IRS. The Roth is one of the few places that you can actually earn money and not have to report it to the IRS. They want a piece of your earned income. They want a piece of your Social Security benefits. They want a piece of your pension benefits. They want a piece of your 401k, traditional IRA, 457 withdrawals. They do not require you to report withdrawals from your Roth. After-tax contribution, but all of the growth is tax-free. You've already paid on the contribution, so when you pull that out, you don't have to pay taxes again. So it's kind of a balancing act between saving taxes now, paying taxes later. You can look at your personal tax situation, decide which is best for you. All of the money either goes tax deferred and is taxed at retirement, or tax deferred and tax free at retirement. Any questions on the differences between the 4 plans? You can make paycheck deductions or payroll deductions to any of these. With the last 2, the traditional and the Roth, you can actually contribute an outside check. So you could send $1,000 in or $500 into one of these plans. 401k, 457 have to come directly through payroll. Regardless of which plans you choose, if you decide to save into one of those plans, if you turn the page over to 4 and 5, you have the same investment choices. These are 8 individual mutual funds available in any of those 4 plans. These are listed on the page from most conservative, least aggressive, least volatile, least potential for loss, but least potential for gain. And as you move across the page, the volatility, the ups and downs, the potential for return, but also the potential for losses increases. The risk speedometer down at the bottom starts out very low, kind of like the speedometer in your car. As you go across the page, it gets high. One thing that I always encourage people to look is at the 1, 3, 5, and 10-year return. Does anybody remember the markets in 2008, 2009? Not great. The 10-year return takes into account 2008. If you look at the return over the 3 and 5-year average, it drops 2008 and the return is significantly higher. However, I would not want you to think that the 3 and 5-year return is something that you, or even the 1-year return is something that you could expect year after year. The longer you have your money invested, the closer you get to the long-term averages. So the 10-year, or if you go online, you could get a little bit longer history, 15, 20 years, that's what you would want to use for these type of plans, because these should be a long-term investment. You know, if you need money next year for a home repair, you don't want to be putting it in your 401k or your 457. You want that in your savings or your checking account. But if you're going to be retiring in 10, 15, 20 years, this is where you can supplement your pension and your Social Security. If you are not a do-it-yourselfer, if you turn the page 6, this year we introduced the target date funds. These replaced the Horizon funds. Does anybody remember the long, short, and medium-term Horizon funds? Okay, those funds were a mix, depending on if you needed the money in short-term, medium-term, or long-term as far as how we set those years. The problem with those funds is that they never reallocated. So if you chose the long-term Horizon fund 20 years ago and now you're ready to retire, you were still in the long-term Horizon fund and it never reallocated, knowing that, or with the assumption that you were now in a short-term horizon with that money because you were closer to retirement. The target date funds reallocate to become more conservative as that target date year becomes closer to the current year. So if you're anticipating retiring in the year 2045, then you may want to pick the 2045 fund if that's where you're going to start pulling money out of your 401k, because that's 25 years from now or 30 years from now. The money's going to be invested pretty aggressively because I'm not going to touch it for 20, 30 years, and I want to take advantage of the long-term averages. But as 2045 gets closer to present day, or as I get closer to that year and I'm closer to retiring, I don't know that I'm comfortable seeing my money go up and down, or as comfortable as I was 20 years before where I'm not going to touch it, it's out of sight, out of mind. as it gets closer to me needing to spend it to pay my bills or to take my family on a vacation or pay college tuition or whatever I'm going to do with that money in retirement for kids or grandkids, I may want it to be a little bit more secure. And the target date funds move along this glide path as the years tick on. So if you picked target date fund 2050, these colors represent these individual funds, and you can see that the 2050 fund has a lot of orange, purple, red, yellow. You're over here. But the 2050 fund is going to shift, and in 30 years, it's going to look like what the 2020 fund looks like today. The volatility, the more aggressive holdings are going to be reduced, and I'm going to have a little bit more green, which represent the more conservative holdings. So if you are not a do-it-yourselfer, if picking investment choices in your retirement plans is just not your preferred thing to do in your spare time, consider the target date funds. They give you an appropriate amount of risk for assuming that you're going to start spending the money in or around or within a few years of that target date year. If you're going to retire in 2030, but you're not going to pull the money out until 2045, pick the 2045 fund. Or if you're going to retire in 2039, the 2040 fund is close enough. So these are in 5-year increments. The target date represents a year that we would anticipate you spending or starting to make systematic withdrawals out of that money. If you never plan on spending the money and you want to pass it on to kids and grandkids, then you could pick a target date fund out in the future, and you could be a little bit more aggressive because that money has time to earn returns in the market based on long-term averages. If you're not sure what target date fund would be appropriate, you can think of the year that you would probably anticipate retiring or spending the money, or you can look at this birthday chart here on page 6, find where your birthday falls, and then off to the side it gives you a target date. If you do not make an election or an investment option in one of these plans, we will default to the target date fund that falls within your birthday range. So individual funds for do-it-yourselfer, target date funds if you're not a do-it-yourselfer, but you want an appropriate amount of risk for when you anticipate using the funds. The target date funds, again, shift for you. The name stays the same, but the allocations change to become more conservative. You do not have to pick the target date fund that puts you between ages 60 and 65. You can pick any target date fund you want. And if you always want to be more aggressive, you would just keep selecting a target date fund that's further in the future. If you are the ultimate do-it-yourselfer, we do have the self-directed brokerage account through Charles Schwab. So if you don't like or are not happy with the 8 individual funds or the 12 target date funds, the world's your oyster in the Schwab account. It's still your 401k, it's still your 457, your IRA, your Roth, but it's held through Charles Schwab, and there are over 8,000 different mutual funds, individual stocks. If you wanted to buy, if you love, I like McDonald's Diet Coke. I should totally buy stock in Diet Coke and McDonald's because I keep them in business. I would do it here. If I wanted to buy shares of individual companies. If you love shares of Disney stock, you could do it here. You have to have at least $5,000 to open this account, and you would do that with paperwork that would shift the 401k from the URS over to Schwab, and then you could shift it back as well. There are some additional trading fees and account maintenance fees over here that you need to be aware of. But if you have a brother-in-law that you trust or someone that you trust that knows the next biotechnology stock and you got to get in while, shares are low, you could do it here. Or if you know the next Apple or Google stock to purchase, you could do that here. If you're not a do-it-yourselfer, that's not your forte. We don't recommend doing this unless you really want to. Stick with the target date funds, stick with the core investment funds. But it is an option. So again, if you're not happy with the choices, you're not limited, you can always do the brokerage account here. Any questions on the investment? Okay, one last thing that I wanted to mention. We talked about this source of income in retirement. We talked about the pension. That's this. funded solely by Box Elder County or whichever agency you're with. Savings plans to help supplement, because that's going to replace a portion, depending on how many years you have, a portion of your income. These plans can help supplement that. With Social Security and with pensions, because it's a monthly income check, if you have a very big medical expense or a very big home repair in retirement, you can't call us up or call Social Security up and say, I need 12 months worth at once, if you're 5 years into retirement. But you could pull a chunk of change from these type of investments all at once if you needed to. It's nice to have this pool of income or this source of income in retirement to help supplement maybe some unexpected needs. And then so we talked about Social Security as well. On our website, if you log in, this is where you would do it right on the right-hand side. Has anybody not created a URS account? Nobody wants to admit it, probably. Okay, if you have not created an account, call the number on the back of this brochure. Log in. That is where you can see your years of service credit. That is where you can enroll in any of the savings plans. You can change your contribution amounts. You can change the investment choices. One thing that's new with our office this year is that we are able to sit down one-on-one with members in the Utah retirement system and actually run the calculators with you and give you advice regarding your specific retirement plans, investment options based on we do a risk tolerance profile with you. We run the calculations for you. You're welcome to bring a spouse. There is no fee for this. There is no selling products with this. It is strictly a service that we offer at our Salt Lake office 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, as well as we can offer it with your agency or with out in the field outside of the Salt Lake office, and we can let your HR directors know where we will be closer to Box Elder County, for example, if we're going to be doing it at, in the Brigham City offices or something like that. We can let you know, and you can schedule a time to do that. We have 30-minute sessions. We have hour sessions. If you want a comprehensive look at Social Security, look at pension, look at savings plan, you'd want to do the comprehensive session. If you just want pension, my pension looks like and what my choices are. Or should I do the Roth, or should I do the 457 or 401k? Just one specific area, then you could sign up for the 30-minute sessions. If you wanted to sign up for those, when you log in, you click on the Education tab, and then right off to the side, we have our seminar and counseling sessions. If you are within 10 years of retirement, I would recommend logging in and signing up for one of our pre-retirement seminars. We go over the pension in more detail. We go over the savings plans in more detail. We bring in someone from the Social Security Administration to talk about Social Security, how to apply for that, especially if you have a spouse that hasn't worked or has lower income, things like that. We bring in someone from the Division of Securities to talk about investment fraud. When you retire, a lot of retirees become targets of scrupulous investment advisors because now you have a 401k or a 457 and they want to be your best friend because they want to invest it in a product for you. So they tell you kind of some things to be aware of, especially the free lunch seminars, the free dinner seminars, to be aware of things like that. We also bring in an estate planning attorney who talks about things like living wills, durable power of attorneys as people get older, and there's issues like Alzheimer's and other things to be aware of to make sure that everything that you've worked for until retirement and into retirement gets passed on to the people that you want it to get passed on to, and that you've got all of those important documents in place. And again, you sign up for either the counseling or the retirement seminars on our website. You'd need a login, so if you need help with that, you call the number on the back of the investment options brochure. I will be here as long as anybody has questions. I can stay, so that is the presentation. If you have any questions, let me know, or you can call the number on the back of the brochure, and we are more than happy to help you with any questions that you have. Yes?
So when you withdraw money, you just go to the website?
It's actually paperwork. If you are still employed, you can take loans out on your 401k and 457.
You do that through the HR?
So it requires paperwork on our website. If you go to the website, there is a link by the calculators. It says forms, and then if you open it up, it lists all the forms, and there are loan forms on there.
So as you retire and you get older and older and older, do they, at certain ages, do they make you take money out?
At age 70 and a half, the IRS requires you to start taking distributions from those first 3 plans, the 401k, the 457, and the traditional IRA. It starts out at not the Roth, because there's no taxes due on it, so they don't care, because they're not going to get anything from it. But they don't want those tax deferred plans to be perpetually passed on to beneficiaries and never get a tax out of it. So it starts out at 3.6% of your balance, and it goes up about 0.1% each year. So you have to draw it. So when you're in your 90s, you have to start taking out in the, like, I don't know, it's like 12% or something. It's not, they don't make you start taking out half or more than half. It starts out very small. But yeah, they do. And if you pass away, then beneficiaries would have to continue to take out those withdrawals.
So can your beneficiaries come to the meetings with you?
Oh, sure. Yep. Okay. Well, I'll say class dismissed, but if you have questions, you can.